First of all, thanks for being here. We know it's late, we know it's the last day, so we really appreciate that you are here. We hope that this is going to be interesting for you. This is a project we were developing last semester in our normal. And yeah, well, I hope you enjoy it and that you find some elements that can be useful for you. And the question we started this research with was, why is learning English so hard? And I need to say that this is not what I think, but many of my students think this. And I have to say that also some of my colleagues think this. So we wanted to know where was this coming from. And this was a research action project developed by our students. So what are the perceptions about English learning of elementary school students and preschool students, and also the rest of the academic community? That means teachers, principals, parents, and all the rest of the community. And more than that is what's behind those perceptions. And those were the trigger questions asked to our students to start with the project. As I mentioned before, this was an action research project developed by the students of our normal in La Normal Rural de Atequiza, Jalisco, from February to March of last semester. And during this presentation, you will see, we will talk to you about the context of our school and this project, the methodology we used to develop this project, the results, some challenges we found, and the conclusions. So the objective of this project was to make students reflect on their own learning processes and what are their own perceptions and how they affect their learning processes of English, yeah? How they affect this learning English. And how can they, as teachers, influence this in their own students to make a more friendly experience for their students.
Okay, as we all know, context is important. This is the town where we work in. This is Atequiza. It's located in Jalisco, in Ixtlahuacán de los Membrillos. Atequiza is a small town. It's about 50 minutes away from here. Its primary economic activity would be education and agriculture. Education is one very important activity of Atequiza because we have a normal school, a rural normal school located there, and Atequiza itself is quite prominent around with the towns around there because of the school we work in. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, thank you. Let me tell you about my school, normal rural school, Miguel Hidalgo. We have two teaching training BA programs, one for those students who want to become elementary school teachers, and one for those students who want to become kindergarten teachers. Okay? Those students come mostly from rural contexts. So it's very different. The interaction with them is very different to the kind of interaction we would have with students from around the city. Most of the teachers who work with us, most of our colleagues studied in the same school. So most of them are graduates from like 10 or 20 years ago who went into school, worked as teachers for a while, and then had a chance to enter and teach teachers. So this kind of gives this cyclic repeating the same patterns over and over again. So that's one important thing to consider too. We have student dormitories and cafeteria. That means our students who come from rural areas, and many of the times don't have the resources to be sent to a university, for example. They have the opportunity to study university level, bachelor's degree at our school, and they're paid by the government to stay there, to sleep there. They're paid their breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we have that. I think, in my perspective, it's a great thing that the government does that, giving opportunities to study to students who don't have the resources. Now, because of that dynamic, our students are also very politically and socially active. They're so politically active that they're constantly doing social and political activities and not going to classes because of that. As a matter of fact, right now the school is taken. There's a student strike going right now, and our students are fighting for their rights and everything. So yes, go students. Anyways, let's move on to the next one, please. Oh yeah, I was gonna say about that. The reason I told you about these political movements is that the time we spend with the students in classrooms is greatly reduced. Sometimes even by half. If we would have 40 sessions during the semester, we will end up with 20 sometimes. So that is the consequence. But well, thank you very much. No, perfect. The students involved in the project. Now, this project, my colleague Paulina was talking about the project and then mentioned the objective of the project. We are actually talking about two projects at the same time. One is our teachers project to make our students use English in their schools where they go and practice. That's one, that's our project, and that's the one we're presenting right now. But in order to present that, we have to tell you what we had our students do, and that's their project. Okay, so we create a project so that we achieve a different goal, a more teacher goal. So our students are from the sixth semester. They're still working on the 2018 curriculum for Normales. These students are in three different groups. Two of those groups are studying to become elementary school teachers, and one of these group is from kindergarten teachers. And inside the groups, we made smaller teams with 5 or 6 students. Okay, so pretty much that sums up the context of our project. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Thank you very much. So our project, our teachery project, has the following methodology. We see 3 important things: project-based learning, collaborative learning, and action research. Yes? Thank you.
Okay, so we use a project-based learning methodology to guide the students through the semester and through a process of reflection using the research action methodology. That is a methodology that they use a lot, and I don't know how related you are to that, but in Normales schools, that's like our daily life reality. We use it a lot, and this is a process of like researching while I teach, like reflecting about my teaching process. So it was a way to use something that they already know applied to English. So they went to their practicum schools. They have a certain period each semester. For example, in the 6th semester, they go to their practicum schools and practice for 2 periods of 2 weeks, and they are teaching there, and they were making this project in their own schools. So they went there, they make a diagnosis about these perceptions of English learning, then they came back, we analyzed the results, and then they tried to develop some strategies to make English learning more appealing to their students.
Mine, thank you. So action research methodology, it is true, we use it every day. This methodology was developed not necessarily for teachers, but education was like, hey, I really like that methodology, let's use it. So action research methodology aims to simultaneously investigate and solve an issue. So investigation is usually just observe and come up with a good description, observe, analyze, and describe. But action research goes beyond. I observe, and then I do something to change it, and then I describe the conclusions. We're great. So can we move on to the next one? Thank you very much. The stages of action research methodology is plan, act, observe, and reflect. If I want to improve a project I'm doing on, I don't know, selling t-shirts, then I want to stop one moment, plan what I'm going to do it, observe the results, reflect, and go over again to plan. Okay? Next slide, please. In the case of education, action research in education goes through the next 5 stages. First, as a teacher, every single class, you should stop to recognize and wonder about a problem that you had in the classroom. This can be done every day after class. Seriously, if you're teachers, please do that after class. For a moment, stop and reflect. How did it go? How was the class? What a problem in the classroom that I have? And think, number 2, about a problem, a possible reason for that problem. Then, when you think what the reason was, try to collect information from your students. Try to go and ask them. Try to apply a survey, or simply watch, continue observing, collect information. Number 4, once you have more information, think of a solution. Do it, and just reflect how it went. Then you start over again. Okay? This action research progress is a complete circle. All right? Okie dokie. Thank you. Next one, please. And then the project itself has the same 3 phases. Pau, please.
The first one was the reflection process of their own learning English. They started when they were kids. We went back, like, how was it? How was your first approach to English learning? And how do you think that affected your next steps of learning English? And then after that, with the same task, they went to their schools and see what their students thought about it, and also the rest of the academic community. And then in the third phase, with that diagnose, they were developing strategies. They design and try to apply some strategies. That was the 3 phases of the project that dured the whole semester. And as we mentioned before, we were using 3 different methodologies. We were working in a project-based learning that was driven through the whole semester, and they were developing this research action. And we were using also collaborative learning that is often mentioned, and that is important to use in our schools. So I want to remind you some of the key elements of collaborative learning. And these are 5 elements. The first one is positive interdependence. So they need to rely on each other to be able to carry on the work. So we use this analogy of a boat, and we are all in a boat. If we don't all row, then the boat will sink and we won't reach our destination. Yeah, so that's the first one. The second one is individual accountability. That means each one of the members of the team needs to have a responsibility. Without, the team won't work. So if you don't do your work, then the team won't work, and you need to be able to measure that. The third one is group processing. So after each activity, we need to come back and see how the things went, and why, and what can we improve. That also needs to be involved for a good collaborative learning. And the last ones are social skills. Of course, collaborative learning should should promote like social skills development. You are working in teams. You need to learn to communicate to each other assertively and these things. And there needs to be face-to-face interaction. Those are the 5 key elements of collaborative learning, and that form the acronym PICS-FACE, easy to remember. So in this project, we're trying to create this positive interdependence by having a goal in common. So each team need to design the instruments to assess the perceptions of their students in the first phase. In the second phase, they need to design the strategies to apply with their students. And in the third phase, they need to present their results. So they needed to work all together to achieve a common goal. And also, something that is useful when we work collaboratively is creating this team identity. This is very important. So something as easy as having a name for your team that starts like building this team identity. These were some of the names they chose for their teams. We were working in class and building this group identity. The individual accountability, we formed the groups trying to take in account their own skills. So we know that we all have different personalities and we have different things to bring to the team. So we made them conscious about this, and they were reflecting on their own personalities and formed the teams in this manner, not just like, okay, go with your friends and do your teams, but trying to take different personalities, and also establishing roles. Each person had a role when they were working. Every time they work in the class, there was someone taking notes, like a note taker, a timekeeper, team leader that was accountable for presenting the work. And this was bringing to the individual accountability. There was group processing after the work. They were coming together, reflecting on their own work. And there was also co-evaluation. They were evaluating their peers. This was made anonymously, so they could feel free. The project was graded in 2 manners. One was the final project, and that this was a team grade, but also they had the chance to evaluate their own teams, and this was an average. Their grade was an average in the end. And we also work in these social skills and face-to-face interaction. For example, when they were working together, there is a very interesting methodology that maybe you have heard of, is this Bono thinking hats. You use different hats of different colors, and each color accounts for one specific type of thinking. Yeah, so one is very positive and sees all the good things. One is negative and sees all the bad things. One is the creative and just thinks about how can we do it creatively. One is like the, how do you say it? The facts, like one very earth standing that says, no, this is not feasible. So in this manner, you can work without saying, okay, I think is my opinion. But you work saying, okay, let's think about facts. It's not me, and it's a way to detach from personal judgments. So we use these brainstorming and other techniques. And well, we are very fast.
Yeah, I do highly recommend you check out those 6 hats activity. It's really good. The Bono hats, look it up on Google. Los 6 sombreros de pensar, that's what they call it in Spanish. Look it up. Great activity to have students talking and discussing a problem in common. All right, so anyway, let's move on. Thank you. Let's go straight into the results. On the diagnostic process, the students had to interview people in their schools. The students had to interview the little kids they interact with, and they had to interview teachers and parents and other types of authorities. This is what we found when we analyzed the answers that the little kids gave. When they were asked, when our students went to their schools and asked little kids, what do you think about English? How do you like English classes? Would you like to learn English? What is your perspective on English? Then we found these words. Little kids would say, interesting. Well, let's read it all in Spanish. The most important, the most prominent words would be interesante, divertido, motivación, emoción, aburrido. Sí, viene la palabra aburrido, ahí la tenemos. Bien novedoso, bien importante, viene creativo, vienen un montón de adjetivos, unos positivos, unos negativos, pero de entre los más importantes, los más grandes fueron repetidos más veces. De entre los más importantes, creo que tenemos adjetivos pues, relativamente positivos, ¿no? Ahora, hicimos la misma pregunta, bueno, nuestros alumnos hicieron la misma pregunta a padres de familia, a maestros, a directores. Ya cambié inglés, no sé por qué ya cambié español de todo, pero bueno, denle, next slide, please. Thank you. Y estas fueron las respuestas que nos dieron los adultos. Los adultos encargados de la educación de nuestros niños dijeron interesante, importante, aburrido, desinterés, complicado, tedioso, difícil. Vemos un importante cambio en las percepciones de lo que ven los niños a lo que vemos los adultos en el mismo salón de clases o en la misma escuela. ¿De acuerdo? So let's go to the next slide, please. So through a process of reflection, students realized that there is a gap between the perceptions towards English learning of kids and adults, exactly what we were talking about. Okay? Our students could go to our schools and realize that there is a difference there. So there's something we can do, right? There's still hope. Our little kids are still interested in English. Maybe not my director, maybe not my teacher, but the little kids are. So there's something we still can do, right? Please go to the next slide. Okay, Pau.
Hola.
Ahora tengo yo el micrófono. No, no es cierto. Adelante.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So then our students were asked, where do you think these perceptions come from? And you see then in the center we have family. And they thought about this because they interviewed students that some were very young, some were first grade, and some were kindergarten students. So most of them never had contact with English. And still, some of them were saying it's difficult or it's boring. So they said, well, it must come from their family, these perceptions. And well, the second phase was the selection of strategies. What are we going to do? Yeah, we know that there's a gap. We know that something is going on between they are little kids and they are excited about learning English, and then they become adults and they think that English is not fun and is difficult. So let's try to create some motivation. How can we motivate them to learn English? And this was challenging because we were asking them to create intrinsic motivation. Like, no matter your teacher, you're going to be interested in learning English. How can you do that? Because it happens in our classrooms. We have students that are very self-motivated and they just come and they take the same classes, and some are very good learning and some are not. And no matter how many classes they take, they just don't learn and they keep saying it's hard, it's hard, it's hard. So how can we do that? It's obviously motivation, so how can we motivate them? And this was their challenge. They were asked to look for strategies to do that. And these were the ideas they come up from. Some of them were really interesting. We were very happy to see their ideas. And I want to present you the pictures here. For example, These are the preschool education students. They were obviously the most creative ones, and they came up with a Disney journey. And they said, okay, we are going to create a Disney experience, and we're going to dress up and tell the kids about Disney and show them movies and all this, and then tell them that, well, to go to Disney, they have to speak English because they speak a different language there. So this was one of them. And for example, this is what a kindergarten student wrote. Well, his mother wrote it for him because he can't write yet. But it says, ya Mateo comentó que si fuera a Disney le gustaría conocer al Hombre Araña porque él es su fan número 1 y le gustaría aprender inglés para conocer al Hombre Araña y saber dialogar con personas de otras lenguas. And so this was one. Other students were doing something similar, but using Mario Bros. That was very trendy in that moment. These were the primary education students. They also came with nice ideas. Some of them were creating also like a traveling experience, going to different countries. And others were choosing to compare traditions, like the traditions in Mexico and the traditions in United States, for example, was here, like this Easter bunny, and how do we celebrate Easter in Mexico, and Christmas, and all these different experiences. And these were the best projects. We selected some of them, the most creative ones. And well, the outcomes of this project that we were doing. Do you want to go through them?
No? Yeah, it's working out. Thank you. So let's talk about the outcomes. First, everything we found students were creating to try to motivate these little kids they work with. This activity was very enriching for us because our students are very creative. They come up with the craziest ideas. They come up with Mario Bros. Stuff, and they came up with Disney stuff. So we found that they actually learned. I mean, our students actually realized that that their English was not very good. Like they wanted to teach their students English, and they were like, "Damn, I'm lacking a lot." So they realized their students, they realized their English is not enough. So they actually became self-motivated to try to learn a little bit more of English to be able to teach it to their little kids. So that was one outcome. That was a really good one, a success for us. Yeah, if I'm speaking, you're not speaking. That's cool. That's so cool. All right. Then another outcome that our students learned that they can actually help their students to learn a little bit of English, even if their own level is not very high. So they learned that, okay, they need to learn a little bit more English, but even if they're not super savvy on English, they still can teach something to the little kids. So that was the second success. That was really good. Then our students realized that it is important to learn English at very early stages. No, that doesn't mean it's not. It's always a good time to learn English. Do go to an English school, but it does mean that for little kids it's a lot easier because young learners are more open to make mistakes, and young learners learn pronunciation more easily. That was no scientific research. This is what our students found doing these activities. Okay? Let's move on to the next slide of outcomes. Thank you. We have 3 more on the list. Our students developed a deeper motivation to teach and learn English. Let's be honest. Most of our students come from rural areas. They study in a rural school, and they go practice at rural schools. So motivation to learn English is not a common day thing. They have to work for it. They have to try to motivate their little kids. So we, Paulina and I, asked our students to motivate little kids to learn. But our students are not very motivated themselves. So they had to motivate themselves to learn English in order to motivate the others. I don't know if that made sense. That kind of made sense in my head before I said it. But that helped our students to want to learn English. The next outcome would be that they successfully applied action research methodology. We talked about that one before, remember? This research, when you actually change the context, they actually did it. They went into a context, observed, did something to change it, and observed again. So that's important for our students. And then they became ambassadors of teaching English. That was a total success, right? Thank you. So that's with the outcomes. Now the challenges.
Okay, and before we go to the challenges, I would like to add something to what Jacob was saying before, because yes, they realized that they are not very proficient at English. This was the generation that started during the pandemics. They stayed 2 years at home learning, so their English skills weren't very good yet, even though they were in sixth semester, but they realized that they could still teach something to their students, because they were coming and teaching them words, and the students were like, oh, and how do you say this? And they could say it, and they were teaching them some words, so they said, okay, I know something. So this was good for them. They realized that, yeah, they had learned. And yes, the challenges of this project was mainly the time. Yeah, we mentioned that the time is always a factor. In our school, I know that it's always a factor for all teachers. So this was playing against us. So to develop a true sense of identity on their teams and to really row all together, this was not completely accomplished. Of course, there were some students working harder than others and some complaining, so this was not accomplished. That is necessary for a successful collaborative work. And also the time for checking on their exercise, because this was apart from the normal curricula we developed. We were still working in learning contents and this, so we were trying to squeeze time out of the classes to work on this project. So of course this was a challenge. But in the end, it was a very good it left us with a very good feeling. Yeah, it was a good experience. Yeah, it was very good for the students. They were very motivated at the end. And this was for most of the students. And I can't say all of them because we don't have good, I don't know what's happening to my brain. Sorry. Yes, I don't have the statistics to say that all of them were motivated, but I can say that most of them, because we observed them, to all of them, that were very motivated and very happy to work in this. So, and they were reflecting a lot, and they realized what were the limitations about learning on themselves. And so they were combining the skills learned that they learned through all their journey in the normal. They work a lot with this action research, but they were never applying it to English, so it was a very valuable experience for them, that they can see that they can apply it on everything, and they should, because that's what they are going to do when they graduate. And they also understood that the importance of teaching English in early stages. So as Jacob mentioned, they became like ambassadors. They said, yeah, I don't know why aren't they teaching it in our school, and I want to teach it when I go there. And yeah, so this is the third. It proved to be a very good motivator for teaching when they graduate. So that will be pretty much it. I don't know if you have something to add, Jacob.
Thank you very much. No, you were mentioning how we worked together with the rest of the teachers to create this project. I mean, the teacher who was teaching geography included something in the project. The teacher who was teaching history included something into the project, and us who were teaching English, we included something into the project. Just wanted to mention about that transversality, combining skills from different subjects into this very project. And I think that would be it. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and for coping with us. And now we're ready to go. Thank you.
If you have any questions, we would be happy to answer them too. Yes.
Just to clarify, the normalistas were doing this during their jornadas de práctica? Okay.
Yes.
And do you think it would work also with students with normalistas in earlier semesters, let's say third semester, fourth semester?
It could be applied. In the beginning, we were thinking about applying it in all the groups, actually, but in the end, we didn't do it. So we don't know it for sure. It could be applied. For example, many of the reflection activities and these, they were conducted in Spanish because they are not proficient in English to teach this, and we considered that it was more important, the reflection process, than the English in that moment. So yes, it could be, but there are some factors also affecting, for example, the time that they go to the practicums. In the first semesters, they only go for 3 days, or like 2 periods, I think, or 3 days. So it will be limited. These projects that they presented, not all of them were able to implement them in their schools. They were doing the material, they went to their schools and do what they could do. So some of them could do them, some of them not at all, some of them only some activities, but the idea was the important thing for us. So I don't know if it could work for first graders in idea, yes, but
Let me just add something there. I want to switch to Spanish because there's a lot of jibber jabber words in Spanish that I want to say there. Cambiando al español, definitivamente creo que puede funcionar un proyecto de este tipo en primer y segundo año, por ejemplo, pero tenemos que limitar el alcance. En primer año, el plan de estudios dice que los alumnos van a ir a las jornadas de práctica a observar y a conocer el contexto. Podemos hacer la primera parte del proyecto en el que el alumno observa el contexto y se da cuenta cuáles son las percepciones que tienen los diferentes individuos en el contexto educativo sobre el inglés. La primera parte, esa que hablaba de el mapa de palabras, ¿no? Hasta ahí podríamos llegar, por ejemplo, en el primer año. El segundo año ya habla de una inmersión un poquito más profunda en la que el alumno tiene un poquito de práctica. Ya estamos hablando de los primeros momentos en que se ejerce como maestro. Ahí ya podríamos intentar que no solamente reconozca las perspectivas de los alumnos, que implemente un par de actividades que traten de promover la motivación. Eso se puede alcanzar en el segundo año. Pero para el tercer año ya podríamos lograr el proyecto un poquito más completo. Sí. Gracias, maestra.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You mentioned that the students noticed that their level of English was kind of low. Did they do anything to improve so they can improve their practice with the students?
That has to be Paul's answer.
yes, I mean the time was short, but they felt this responsibility. So that was good. They said, okay, I need to learn more to be able to teach better. So it was more like self-motivating than actual learning. I hope so. If they did something to actually improve, I hope so. Yes, they were saying so at least. Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm an English teacher, but I didn't study in normal because I was working at IBM first as a planner. And then when I decided to teach in a private college, and I studied English in Prolex, the 12 levels and the teacher's training. And I have been, for example, when I want to cover an interinato, they asked me that I must be normalista. And I have the cells by Cambridge. I'm TKT Banda 4. And I assist in all these congressions. But I would like to know why some of my coworkers, they are from normal, they don't have enough English level. And I would like because, sometimes I have to correct a lot of errors. For example, grammatical errors, pronunciation errors. For example, the singular plural rules. They say that the plural is apostrophe S, and that's not true. It's when the word ends in A but before has a vowel, you have to leave the Y and add the S. And when the word ends in Y and before it has a consonant, you have to take off the consonant, the Y, and add, for example, cherry, cherries. Play, plays, okay? There are 8 rules for singular and plural, and I can give a lot of examples for that. So, when I'm teaching, I have to correct all those errors from my partners. And it is sometimes is embarrassing for me to do that. I don't know how can we fix this. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Yeah, that's an interesting issue. Yes, do you want to add something to the question? Okay. Just give me a chance, and then you can add up something. Will you please? So great, yeah, fellow Prolix student, great. I studied at Prolix too. I went through the 12 levels and actually worked in Prolix for quite a long time. So I know what you're talking about. Now think about Prolix. Prolix teaches English for, if I remember correctly, one level is 1 month. That's 4 weeks. That's 2 hours a day times 5. That's 10. That's 40 hours per level. 40 times 12. That would be around 900 hours, just for the basic English. So you would spend 900 hours learning English. Now, at Normales, el currículum actual de Normales no ofrece 900 horas de inglés. No tenemos 900 horas de clase. And the objectives that we have in the curriculum are very, very different to that of Prolix. So that's why our students are not qualified with a B2 certification, at least not all of them. Some of them might be. I am proud to announce that this year we certified that was like 10 certified students in our school. So that is one goal. That is one good success. So that is it. Would you like to add something up to that answer? Yes, please.
The problem is most students or most teachers don't teach the grammar in Spanish. And if the students don't understand their own grammar, they're not going to understand grammar in another language. If the English teachers don't teach step by step the grammar or the explanation, I've given class since preschool, elementary, middle school, and high school. if the students don't understand step by step, and I was telling my colleague, one of the examples is ordinal numbers. Most people know that ordinal numbers give sequence. The students know that they have to write the ST for the date or the ND, but they don't understand why. Once you explain step by step that first, FIRST, it's the difference between one and first. So us as English teachers, we have to teach step by step and explain every little detail so they understand it. But beginning with the grammar in their native language and then English as a second language.
Thank you very much.
And there's something I would like to add too regarding to your question, and that is that actually we can talk a lot about that because we started with this Estrategia Nacional de Inglés that started with the 2018 program that was aimed to make bilingual students and make bilingual schools. So unfortunately the study plans now changed. We are still working on that. But things like this, for example, having this forum in English here for teachers, I mean, we are a little audience, but still I think this is something that is going to start motivating teachers, because I think that was your question, like they need to start seeing, and I think they are starting to see that it's something relevant to be a teacher and to be a professional of education. You don't need to teach English to be proficient in English. Yeah, we all should know. But I think this is a very good example of efforts that are going in that direction. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention.
Bueno, vamos a darle las gracias a los maestros de la Escuela Normal Rural Miguel Hidalgo por compartir con nosotros su experiencia y les vamos a hacer entrega de unos reconocimientos. El primero es para la conferencista Claudia Paulina Navarro Núñez y para el maestro Rubén Jacob Sánchez Nájera. Y también les hacemos entrega de los reconocimientos por parte de la Dirección de Lenguas Extranjeras.
Muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Y miren, por si no estuvieran lo suficientemente cargados, aquí les van.